We are here with NFL Network's James Palmer. James, first off, thanks so much for taking the time to chat today. As you know, it was announced that the Broncos have agreed to terms with George Paton to become the team's new general manager. Just to start, what are your thoughts on this hire, and what can you say about the type of guy the Broncos are getting in Paton?
Well, first off, they got the guy, Sydney, that they wanted. This was the top of their list, and this was a guy who's been at the top of a lot of teams' lists over the last couple of years. So if you want to put the pieces together a little bit about how desired George has been over the last several seasons by other organizations, and they haven't been able to land him, tells me a couple of things. One, a lot of people around the league really know that he knows what he's talking about. I, for one, have also been told that by a variety of sources, but at the same time, he's been very selective about where he thinks is the right fit for him. And I think that lead up into him selecting the Denver Broncos plays a huge part in this as well, because not only did they want him, like so many other teams have, he wanted to be with the Denver Broncos because he's had other suitors, and he had other suitors this offseason in where he could have possibly landed. I think that shows you that this is the great start to a fit that everybody hopes is exactly what John Elway and company envision this to be, because he wants to be here. It is a long-term deal. This is a spot that he thinks has, as he said, a sleeping giant in terms of the roster and the organization here. So he is as happy as the Broncos are landing him. I think that's really important.
Well, he spent the last 14 seasons with the Vikings, as you know, including the last 9 as the team's assistant GM. Kind of going off of that, why do you think now was the right time for him to make the next step in his career? Like you mentioned, he's been sought after over the past couple of years.
I think with everything that he has done, he's now realized that he has been able to be a part of all the different aspects that really take being the general manager. I think people don't realize that being a general manager in the NFL now is far beyond just picking players in the free agency or within the draft. There are so many other aspects you have to be able to handle while you're managing these billion-dollar organizations. And so I think he has now figured out, with all the time he has taken, he knows the pro side, he knows the college side, he knows the cap side, he knows free agency, he knows every aspect that now becomes part of the general manager. And taking that step and learning from someone like Spielman for so long, I think really shows you that he was taking his time. He knew he probably was ready for the last several years, but wanted to make sure it was in the right spot, like I mentioned earlier. So I do believe he knows he's been ready, but wanted to be set up with a proper roster, and we can get to that, and a proper salary cap situation and the right fit in terms of the entire building. He was just kind of waiting for that. I think all the time that he has taken, he has been ready for a couple of years. He was just ready for the right fit.
Yeah. Well, the Vikings, they've been pretty successful in both college and pro scouting, during Peyton's time there. No team has selected more future Pro Bowlers than the Vikings did during the last, I think, 10 NFL drafts. What is it about Peyton's skill set that, makes him so successful in those areas?
Well, one of the biggest things is making sure you can find talent, not just at the top of the draft, that you find it in those middle rounds. And you can talk to teams around the league that say, when you miss on your third, fourth, fifth rounders, those should be guys that are contributing to your roster and contributing potentially as starters or role players. A lot of times you want them to be starters, and a lot of teams that miss on that middle group usually are the ones that struggle. And I think when you can find talent outside of just the top of the draft, and man, did they find one at wide receiver this past year, but at the same time, when you can fill the roster, not just stars, not just those top tier rounds, when you can fill your roster top to bottom is where you find Pro Bowlers. And John Elway did that in the past, right? You look at the years in the later rounds when he picked Derek Wolfe and he picked Malik Jackson and guys like that. I mean, Chris Harris, the undrafted guy. I mean, those are the ones as a general manager that people rank you on, not the first round picks. It's those diamonds in the rough that you can go out and find. And I think he's been a part of that in Minnesota. And that's what makes him a desired candidate with a lot of teams, is because you can find talent throughout your draft that can contribute to your roster is just massive at this level.
Yeah, well, he said in his opening statement with the Broncos that this team is a sleeping giant, and that he wants to be aggressive, but obviously not reckless in adding talent to the roster. In your opinion, James, what should be his top priority as he comes in as the new GM?
Sydney, there are a few, and they're big ones. I mean, you have to, one, deal with an extension possibly, or cutting ties with the face of the franchise over the last decade in Von Miller. What do you do with him? He was coming in to this season, from everybody I talked to, just ready to go to have one of the best years of his career in a lot of people's minds. So just I hurt for Vaughn the way this year went, and hopefully this isn't the end for him in Denver, but that's a major decision. Justin Simmons, one of the best young players in all of football, a core player to this defense, but a massive member of the leadership of this team moving forward. You have to try to get him done to a long-term contract. You still have the option to, tag him again. But then at the same time, to me, this is a quarterback-driven league. What does he want to do with Drew Lock? What does he want to do potentially bringing in competition with Drew Lock? Does he want to bring in a veteran for Lock to learn from? Does he want to move on entirely? His vision alongside Vic Fangio on what he wants to do at the quarterback spot will be the most scrutinized aspect of his job starting out, and will be the one under the biggest microscope starting out, is what does he want to do at quarterback?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, like you said, he will certainly have a long to-do list once he gets here. James, can't thank you enough for your time. Appreciate you chatting with me today.
No problem, Sydney.